enable you to put some of that on the record.
It can't get much worse than what PwC have done.
I was absolutely astounded that a firm of this significance would be involved in something as, well, to put it bluntly, something as sleazy as this.
They cannot be trusted, given what we know of their current culture.
For almost 90 years, PwC has tallied the votes for the Oscars. Now it's embroiled in a scandal that has all the makings of a Hollywood blockbuster. Betrayal, conflict, punishment.
Absolutely furious. Absolutely ropeable about these revelations.
PwC used confidential information it gained as a consultant advising the federal government on multinational tax policy to help huge international clients work around those very laws.
This was a scheme designed at the highest levels of PwC Australia and their global network that was actioned to take money from the Australian people, having taken confidential information from the Australian government.
There's such a breach of trust, such a breach of the conflict of interest obligations, and just downright poor behaviour.
It's taken almost a decade for the revelations to come to light. In 2015, when PwC's top tax consultants, Tom Seymour and Peter Collins, appeared at a Senate committee into corporate tax avoidance, they were keen to highlight their firm's ethical credentials.
I have the utmost faith in the ethical standards of the people we employ, and I think that we have a great contribution to make to how we make Australia's tax laws work better.
So they were sitting there in 2015 in that context saying, we're great guys, what are you talking about? You can trust us. We've got the right culture. And both of those individuals had to know at that time that something wasn't right.
A month after their Senate appearance, then Treasurer Joe Hockey was talking tough on multinational tax avoidance.
These companies are diverting profits earned in Australia away from Australia to no tax or low tax jurisdictions.
He'd just announced new laws designed to keep more tax revenue in Australia. But little did he know, Peter Collins, who was one of the PwC experts who helped design the new laws, was using the inside information he'd gained to drum up business for the firm.
Peter Collins was advising Treasury on the design of new tax laws, and he had signed confidentiality agreements. He was helping PwC design schemes to avoid the anti-avoidance laws. So he was working two sides at the same time.
The behaviour of PwC may have stayed buried, if not for an investigation by a little-known body called the Tax Practitioners Board. It deregistered Peter Collins for 2 years for integrity breaches.
Mr Collins, as we said in our public entry on our register, shared that information with PwC personnel, both in Australia and overseas, who in turn shared that with clients, and that was part of the monetisation.
In January, when the board published its findings into Collins, PwC was keen to paint him as a rogue operator who was no longer at the firm. But at a Senate inquiry a month later, the plot thickened.
He didn't monetise this by himself. He did it with other people in PwC.
That's right, Senator.
At a business summit in March, CEO Tom Seymour denied any suggestion that anyone aside from Collins was involved.
There was no findings that 30 people got the information. If you read the findings, they say one partner shared the information, they say we should have had a policy in place, and they say as a result of that, there is a risk that one could perceive, with the exact words, that in all of his dealings there was a conflict there.
That denial didn't age well when earlier this month a swathe of company emails were published by a Senate committee in response to a question on notice from Senator Deborah O'Neill.
It's through looking at those 144 pages of emails that the web of deception, the scale of the deception, is now revealed. This shocks me as an Australian senator, and I've seen a fair bit.
In one email, an unnamed partner boasts of the new clients the firm had won thanks to Collins Intel.
We got this outcome because we're aggressive in telling these relationships they needed to act early, heavily helped by the accuracy of the intelligence that Peter Collins was able to supply us. We expect that revenue from the first stage of the multinational anti-avoidance laws projects will be approximately $2.5 million.
The document dump forced PwC CEO Tom Seymour to admit that he too had received the emails, but initially he told partners he wouldn't step down.
How tenable was it that Tom Seymour would keep his job once those emails came out?
Well, Tom Seymour was finished from that moment.
CEOs expect conditions to be tougher.
But his resignation won't satisfy Senator Barbara Pocock, who's sitting on a Senate committee examining the government's use of consulting services.
We need a full list of the people that are engaged in it, in behaviour which, is shocking, to make money, and they boast about making money. We also need to know about the companies who benefited from that information.
We're only seeing the tip of the iceberg so far. It will depend on what the Senate uncovers, but I suspect that this will reach, to the very heart of the taxation section of PwC.
PwC declined 730's request for an interview. In a statement, the firm said an independent investigation led by former Telstra boss Ziggy Switkowski will examine the use of confidential tax policy information as well as the accountability, governance and culture of the firm. The findings will be delivered in September and the firm will share a summary. The acting CEO has said the firm is committed to learning from its mistakes.
Anthony Wheely KC from the Centre for Public Integrity says the review doesn't go far enough.
I don't rule out that the Senate may uncover more and that it may in time become a corruption issue, and it may even find its way to the new National Anti-Corruption Commission for investigation.
The scandal has raised questions about the federal government's increasing reliance on the Big Four consulting firms. Government spending on the Big Four has ballooned by more than $1 billion since 2013.
Excessive use of them undermines the use made of the public service, and the public service then doesn't invest in its core activities as much if governments and they become over-reliant on consultants.
The government has committed to reducing its reliance on external consultants, but rebuilding the public service will be a slow process.
I think there's going to have to be quite a lot of work on better management of consultancies and be more selective.
There are now calls for PwC, which won $500 million in government contracts in the past 2 years, to lose its biggest client.
PwC should be banned from government contracts. That's very clear.
We have looked at it and we are taking further advice on what further can be done to deal with it.
With dozens of PwC staff potentially implicated, former and current consultants may be compelled to appear before a parliamentary committee into the integrity of consulting services.
The Senate committee is not going to go away. The media is not going to go away. The international media is beginning to sniff this. I don't know where it's going to go, but it's going to be entertaining.